So I figured that after 3 days, probably a lot of us have been taking in a lot of things, probably also giving out a lot of things, and we all need that space for reflection and didn't want to overwhelm us with more information necessarily. So this closing reflection really will be a question to both of you about how have you experienced these days? What connecting dots have we found throughout the themes, throughout the people you've met, and throughout those sessions you attended? And I think that the question I have for you is what is something that you've learned, but most importantly, what are new questions that you've come across? I feel like in workshops, it's like, here are some answers, and then you leave with more questions. So what are some of the questions that you have encountered and that now are in your heads? Pancho?
Okay. Thank you. First of all, I hope all of you had a very successful and productive 3 days. I hope that you have had a chance to develop strong friendships with each other. For me, coming to the conference, we worked on a lot of issues here for a couple of months, trying to helping in developing the agenda, the program, etc. And my learning has been that there's still so many to learn, so much to learn about peace building, trying to strengthen programs. But one important thing that struck my mind was how important the state building process was to the process of peace building. A lot of the work depended on how we could also help strengthen local institutions and local organizations. I'm glad that the last workshop I joined gave me an indication about methodologies that we were using that I found out in that presentation was being undertaken elsewhere in the Philippines. I'm talking about village logbooks that had been done in previous studies of land and conflict. Secondly, a major addition was the discussion of climate change. This is the first time that we've seen, the nexus being discussed between climate and violent conflict in the Philippines itself, because very few people have been working at the connections between the two. I think that culturally as well, the work with indigenous peoples has been an important thing. I made it a point to join those groups, and I was really interested in what was happening elsewhere, including that strong assertion also about work on specific sectors, working with people with disabilities, especially because we tend to fail to mainstream the issues of disabilities and other groups in different things that we do. So those have been, for me, very important learnings during this conference, something we can carry and push forward. So that's it.
Thank you.
So thank you. Hello, everybody. Fascinating days. Last month, some of us attended a conference in Brussels, a community of practice on mediation. And right now, the mood globally is quite depressed with developments because the number of armed conflict is increasing. The number of victims of armed conflict is at a record high since Second World War II. And the tools we've been using seem to have run out of steam or not be fit for purpose for the challenges because the conflict dynamics continue to develop at a pace that we seem not able to catch up with. So that conference was rather depressing, maybe you could say. And then coming to a conference like this one, where people are sharing what they do in practice, not just reflecting on how complicated the world is, but look, this is what we're doing. I think this is very refreshing. And I think that's a common thread we get throughout this conference, because it does also bring together these different communities of people from the tech sector, the art sector, and the more traditional peace-building sector like myself, if you want to. And that's also very refreshing. We get different perspectives, different angles. and new questions.
Cool. I feel like those were. I feel like those were questions transformed into comments, and it's nice because it makes me like.
Well, it weren't questions. You're right. What we did was comment on the common. You asked us two things.
I did ask
actually.
you two things. Yeah.
You did ask two
I did.
things. What we learned and what was a common thread, and then what's a question, and you didn't allow us to ask a question.
Yeah. So would you ask a question?
I want to follow up on what Christian said. I remember.
Mike.
I still remember that time when there was talk about the end of interstate wars. It's sad to see that we are approaching a new stage where interstate wars are reoccurring around the place. In the Philippines, that is particularly important for us. We are at ground zero. We don't know what will happen in the next few years. I've always said that the elephant in our room is no one is talking about China and the possibility that we may be dragged into a war with China. And what happens to the entire peace-building community here? Once the bombs start raining down, if that ever happens, if we see anything happening, something that approximates what the terror that happened in the Gaza Strip, so what will we do in conditions like this? Those are the things that, you want to bring out in this conference, but you also can't, lest you spoil the thinking and the feeling of people. But there are very clear realities that we need to confront. And that is where sometimes I like people, if you're a classic peace builder, of course, I appreciate your experience in those regards because those were things that we experienced in our youth, no? Which a lot of people who are here did not experience anymore because we were involved in conflicts that were on identity, no longer on geopolitics, right? And to a certain extent, we have to rev out the entire peace movement, no? The peace movement in Europe that grew out of the nuclear proliferation treaties, no? Anti-nuclear proliferation treaties and the fight against nuclear arms, etc. None of that is being discussed in the region. There is neither a social movement here in the region, in Southeast Asia, among countries that are in the first line of defense and in ground zero if anything should happen in the West Philippine Sea or the South China Sea. So those are, for us, issues that remain in the midst of such a successful conference. Okay?
Thank you.
The thing is that conflicts are developing, violence dynamics are developing, and we tend to be kind of obsessed with innovations. What else can we do? What do we need to do differently? And that's right. But at the same time, old conflicts are coming back, which we were not prepared to because we haven't faced one country invading another one like Russia on Ukraine, or we haven't faced the level of atrocities committed by Israel against Palestine at this level anywhere in the world ever before, or at least since the Second World War. But that's part of the depressing reflections I mentioned before. But what I thought was very helpful here as well, and sorry, I'm going back to, I'm not asking the question yet, I'm still making a comment, but very helpful. It's an observation from an outsider, an outsider partial towards the inside with a heart in the Philippines, is how the Philippine movement has been, a peace movement has evolved to adjust. And we listened to Risa Hontiveros yesterday, and what she was sharing, and your generation, Pancho, is probably the transition, the nonviolent transition from dictatorship to democracy, and then the early hopeful days in the 90s where it seemed to be possible to make peace in Mindanao and with the communists. That was a time of hope, and that was a kind of activity you did there. Then the hope of doing any peace with the communists, I think, kind of disappeared for most of the people in the Philippines, and therefore the work in this century has focused more on Mindanao. And getting to the peace agreement with the MNLF and later with the MILF in 2014, that has now created a new need. And you are developing a CCAA and with the early, with the response team and everything else, to the new circumstances. So it's like a third wave adjusting to the new developments here, and that's fascinating. Question. Well, how do we balance the need to observe, monitor developments so we can respond to them, and at the same time, don't forget the relevance of people-to-people dialogue and engagement. So, because geopolitics does not substitute the need for us, because at the same time as geopolitics is getting more relevant, in many places in the world, we are de-learning how to engage with those who think differently from us. And we need to do both. Now, how do we do that?
That was good. Thank you both. Thank you. No, I feel like even though we start with questions, we have a hard time, when we're in groups like this and it's like, anyone has any questions, and then people make comments, and I'm like, no, a question. Like where? Because your comment comes from somewhere, and your questions lead to something else. So I think they're always a nice transition moment. So thank you both for sharing your questions. And it's kind of nice for me to be here, like in between the two of you right now, and hear these things, because from a perspective of another generation, a generation that has not known this conflict in geopolitics and that now begins to know what it is and begins to not understand and begins to realize that we need to understand. And at the same time, we have still these issues of the whole movement that has happened in the world, and that we live them at home and we live them afar, and sometimes we don't really know how that works. Do we monitor? Do we observe? Do we go? Do we act? Do we stay? It's also questions we have. So if we find each other in the questions like this, maybe it's a good way to move forward together. That was a reflection from me too. And maybe just breaking for a second the space between us and the rest of the audience, I just wanted to put CCAA and Build Up on the spot, because we've been here organizing, but we've also been here thinking and co-thinking with all of you. And I was just wondering if there's any questions that my team or CCAA has that have come up for you also in these days. If you don't, it's okay. I realize that I'm putting you on the spot, but yeah? Scout?
So hello everybody, I'm Scout, I'm from CCAA. So if I may, perhaps not a question, but a realization maybe, or my learnings these past few days. So for those of you who don't know, I'm a newcomer in this space. And as somebody who's just starting their journey in this field, I've found it so inspiring to witness the result of everyone's joy, enthusiasm, and passion for peace building. And as I listened to speakers, as I sat in workshops, I admired the continuous effort in not only keeping up with the day-to-day work, but to continue to adapt and to innovate to serve the needs of the community. And I think one of the most important lessons that I've learned is the importance of keeping sight of one's North Star as a peace builder, and most importantly, to keep sight of the people and the communities that we serve. Especially with everything that's happening today, I feel it's so much easier to just give up. So while I'm finding that peace building is very challenging, requires a lot of hard work, it's all worthwhile to see that we're making an impact, even in the smallest ways. And truly, I feel honored to be a part of this work now in this field and to have been a part of Build Peace 2024. So those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's someone from Build Up, Sino, Ahmed? Yeah.
And thank you very much. I'm excited to be here. I'm also new to Build Up. I've been with build. I face this side? Sorry?
You can face them as well.
Oh, if I can face, sorry. I'm a bit shy, so. The question I have is like, I'm a researcher by profession and I'm new to beach building. I'm really excited to be part of this conversation between beach builders from different parts of the world. And the question I have is, are we missing something from this discussion? What are we missing? Are we missing? Okay, we know that much of the discussion has been focusing on building peace within the community, right? But we know that much of the global suffering, global unrest, and global conflict is done by states. Either states committing atrocities against their civilians, or two states fighting and committing atrocities, right? So now, why is that? Whose job is it us? Is it other actors, other beast builders somewhere else in a different planet? Who should talk to states to live peace among themselves, or to live peace with their own people? Whose job is it? That's the question I have. If we are beast builders, is that our job? Or is our job just to focus on building peace within the community at micro level? How about that macro level, national level, state level, global level peace building? That's my question.
Thank you. Bueno. Thank you, Scott, and thanks, Ahmed. I just kind of thought of doing this just because we've all been around and we have been in the workshops to help you with the tables, but we have also been there to think because we were interested and we've been co-creating this. So just thinking that we have all these questions that we take forward, thinking about the future, it's time for a revelation. And I would like, well, you both have mics, but I wanted Pancho to pass on the torch to Christian. This is the torch. Thank you, Pancho.
Why am I getting this?
You're getting the torch because you have an announcement to make. It's you.
Who makes the announcement?
Yes. So where will Build Peace 2025 be?
Okay, so the big surprise will be finally unveiled. Nobody knew it.
We were too excited, sorry.
Build Peace 2025 will take place in Santa Coloma de Gramenet.
Next to Barcelona. Thank you. Yay.
And I also need to announce that this conference, we are already working on it, and the team, I want to also share that Eugenia, who's standing up already, Silvia, who can stand up, Pablo, are 3 of the 15 members of the ICIP team who will be working with you guys to make this conference in Barcelona possible next year.
Thank you. So exciting. And aside from the exciting part, I do want to say it's something a bit personal. I hope it's okay just to finish, the personal is political, the political is personal. And I think that standing here, the 3 of us today, to me also has special meaning. Also because I've been working very closely with CCA for some months. And there's just something about a Filipino passport holder giving the torch to a Spanish passport holder that just means a lot to me. And I hope that to all of you as well. Just because we've been talking a lot these days about also the power and how power operates and how where it stands and who has it and where it comes from. And being here for the first time, I'm also Spanish, and that just has, you learn and you have a lot to learn. And there's just something about this, maybe it's very conceptual, but there's something to me about this torch passing about who comes before now, who held the power, who's giving it to who. that I hope that this kind of somehow acts in where we all stand in the same stage, acknowledging what happened, but also realizing that things can be different is also part of our new questions or our new ways forward. So thank you.
Can
and-
I comment something on that?
Sure.
Okay, same for me here. I must say, if I'm a classical peace builder, if you want, but a peace builder at the end of the day, it is very much thanks to the Philippines. It was here where I was, as I said, we have a common friend, Ed Garcia, common with Nikki, with Pancho, and with many Filipinos in this room. And he was the one who invited me to the Philippines for the first time 20 years ago. And then I kept coming for many, many years, always invited or in partnership with friends here. And this is where, to great extent, what I've learned and who I am has been framed by not only what I learned from the Filipino peace building expertise, but from the Filipino people and their open mind and their warm heart, which is why I certainly partially also feel very Filipino. So thank you so much.
The torch has been passed, but we're still in the Philippines, and it's still the closing of Build Peace 2024. So maybe if we
still need to experience this Category 5.
And we still need to experience a typhoon. Yay. So on that note, would you give another round of applause to Christian and Pancho? Thank you. Gracias. Gracias. Thank you. Okay, yay, let's go. The handshake. And now I do want to say a final thank you. Thank you to, you know what, everyone from Build Up and CCA present in this room, could you please stand up? I'm already standing up, so I feel you all can too. There we go, thank you, thank you. In the back as well, thank you. Thank you. I love that I didn't even need to say give a round of applause and everyone just start clapping. Thank you all for the conference. Thank you to all the volunteers that have been also working hard. Thanks to the FPLA management and service that has been working with us. Thank you to Jean-Marie who's been recording everything that's been going on. I don't know if we're streaming anymore, but thank you to all of those that have also joined us online for the radio. Thanks to all the contributors and thanks to all of you for coming. I don't know why I'm standing alone here now, but thanks for coming. We hope you had a good time, and we hope that you'll continue being part of the Build Peace community in the years to come. So, yes, thank you. A final round of applause to all of us. And I'm gonna have to.
No. You're staying. There's actually two people that really need to be named, and those are Nikki, who really made sure that this conference came, and Rita,